The ATF can't link the bullet that killed Charlie Kirk to the suspect's rifle. Folks, this case is becoming a mess. We're going to tell you a little bit about it, the latest developments coming up. Maryland morning. New Yorkers protest the homeless shelter that they voted for. Somehow it all makes sense. And finally, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. It all depends on how you handle it. And this one wasn't good. We got video for you. So, are we still there? I hope. Hang on. Just making sure everything is still copacetic. My mom used to use that word. Let's make sure it's all copacetic. Okay. I'm hitting all the wrong buttons this morning. Anyway, yeah, we got all that and more coming up on the show. Good morning, and wherever you may be on the world, mostly in America, of course. This show is all about the United States of America and all the good and the bad. I am on the other side of the planet, however, as most of you know, but it gives me a different perspective, and it's rather interesting looking in from out here. I'm still a patriot through and through, still a MAGA member, proud MAGA member. My MAGA hat's back there on the, let me move the microphone. There you go. Now you can see it. All right. If you're not paying attention to the Tyler Robinson case, folks, you'd better start now. A fresh court filing has just dropped a massive curveball in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. The filing claims, and again, this is a filing from the defense, so this is a claim. They claim the bullet that killed Kirk last September does not match the rifle that Robinson used. His defense attorneys now argue ATF, unable to identify the bullet recovered at autopsy to the rifle allegedly tied to Mr. Robinson. The defense team may now offer the ATF firearms analysis testimony as exculpatory evidence. Big word. They said in a motion filed Friday they were going to push the preliminary hearing back at least 6 months, which is likely all they're just trying to do. We'll let Robinson sit comfortably in jail and we'll stretch this thing out as far as we possibly can. The filing from the defense also notes that DNA reports filed by the FBI and ATF will take time for the defense team to analyze because reports indicated that several different DNAs were found on some of the items. As these cases indicate, determining the number of contributors to DNA mixture and determining whether the FBI and ATF reliably applied validated and correct scientific procedures is a complicated process which requires the assistance of various types of experts, forensic biologists, geneticists, system engineers, statisticians, all of which have got to review and evaluate a bunch of different categories. That is from the filing. Now, this may be reaching, but the inability to conclusively match the bullet to the rifle does not mean it wasn't the rifle or it wasn't Robinson. In fact, there is a significant amount of other evidence that paints a very damning case against Robinson. Text exchange between Robinson and his roommate and partner, Lance Twiggs, the alleged killer, claimed the rifle was the only evidence he left behind, the court docs show. This is Robinson, if I'm able to grab my rifle unseen, I'll have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they've moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it. Robinson also reportedly wrote about planning to get the weapon from his drop point, but that area was locked down. He said in a text, "I'm wishing I'd circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. Which is I don't even know if it had a serial number, but it wouldn't be traced to me. Worry about prints. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits and didn't have the ability or the time to bring it with." Robinson also worried that his father would ask about the missing gun, considered ditching it to avoid being caught with fingerprints. He also confessed to his father, who alerted authorities, held him until police arrived. Now, according to Robinson's friends, while they never believed he was capable of violence, he did make drunken jokes about Republican politicians catching a bullet. Some described him as under the influence of left-wing extremism, but insisted he gave no clear warning signs. One friend summed up Robinson as someone who loved guns and beer and harbored a deep distrust of the government. Again, this is a filing from the defense. They're going to keep doing this. They're going to keep delaying this trial as long as they possibly can. And here's another thing that's happening. How many people do you suppose on the planet have not heard at least a story about this, Charlie Kirk's assassination? Where are you going to get a jury pool that is not tainted? 100% not tainted. I don't see it happening. I just don't. You're either not going to find anybody who has no idea of anything related to the Charlie Kirk shooting, or you're going to wind up with people who go up there and lie and say they don't. Then they're going to get on the jury and they're going to say, "I'm voting for acquittal. I think he's not guilty, and nothing you could say will change my mind." These are the kind of very realistic things that can and likely will happen in this case. The longer this gets delayed, the longer it keeps going on, the more likely something's going to happen, and this is going to wind up in some sort of a hung jury or an acquittal. It ain't looking good. Now, look, I'm all for equal justice. I'm all for proving the fact beyond a reasonable doubt. And I have no access to all the evidence in this case. So I am not in the position of telling you he's guilty or he's not guilty. I can tell you what this strategy is, because I believe in my heart of hearts the defense is just going to try and keep on keeping on for as long as they can. They will stretch this thing out to 10 years if they have to. Mark my words. But that story from the end of last week, definitely not good news. That's for damn sure. Besant. We are loving this guy. Scott Besant is deploying the power of the Treasury to stop healthcare fraud. And he says, quote, "We are all hands on deck." This is why Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent may very well go down as the greatest Treasury Secretary of our lifetimes. In fact, of many lifetimes. Unlike the majority who served in this cabinet position, this guy Bessent is neither a figurehead, and he is not there to maintain the status quo. That's for damn sure. He has become the financier equivalent of the military, killing, breaking, blowing things up. We love this guy. And in the latest move to blow up the rampant fraud and waste and abuse in government programs, particularly by foreign actors, Bessent is empowering financial institutions to report any and all suspicious financial activity to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. He posts on X today in support of POTUS' pledge to combat fraud and in line with the Anti-Fraud Task Force led by VP Vance, issued an advisory urging financial institutions to be vigilant about fraud schemes targeting government health care benefit programs. Separately today, FinCEN issued a proposed rule paving the way to pay whistleblowers for additional tips. FinCEN issued an advisory to financial institutions asking them to be vigilant about fraud that is targeted toward Medicare and Medicaid. That follows the Secretary of Treasury's trip to Minnesota earlier this year, where he announced a whole bunch of different steps that Treasury is implementing to detect and stop government benefits fraud across this country, not just Minnesota, although that is a figurehead in this case. Separately today, FinCEN issued a proposed rule that paves the way to pay whistleblowers for actionable tips, which would protect our financial system from all kinds of illicit activity. And this could very well be what finally flips the script on these scum. People who work in finance very often afraid to risk their jobs or potential relationships. They're also afraid about retaliation if they make waves by reporting suspicious activity. So a financial incentive could help go a long way to soften that blow. Trump's been clear that Americans have a right to know their tax dollars are not being used to commit fraud, Bessent said. Under President Trump's leadership, Treasury will continue to find and disrupt fraud at schemes wherever they exist, and we will work with our law enforcement partners to hold predators to account. FinCEN's advisory provides financial institutions with an overview of how fraudsters, organized crime groups, and increasingly transnational criminal organizations, TCOs, are targeting government health care benefits. They also highlight money laundering, red flag indicators to help financial institutions identify and report suspicious activity. This advisory strongly encourages financial institutions to voluntarily report suspicious activity to FinCEN and immediately notify law enforcement of this kind of activity. He was talking on Fox and Friends yesterday morning. Reported that in 2025, financial institutions filed 20% more SARS reports, suspicious activity reports, than in 2024. 20% more. After Trump made it clear he would work to combat fraud. From the mountains of fraud being exposed in places like California and, oh yeah, Minnesota, just those two. Likely not even a drop in the bucket of Medicare, Medicaid, other forms of health care fraud, and the abuse that is going on in likely all 50 states in this nation. If that 20% reporting goes up by even 50%, it could be hundreds of billions of dollars of recouped money. And again, the programs are supposed to be going to those in need. Obviously, right now, that ain't happening. Go Scott Bessent. Love it. Hey, Providence, Rhode Island. Yeah, I'm talking to you. What the hell? Look at this headline. Woke backlash hits LGBTQ club honoring Irina Zarutska. What? Some things, simply put, really should transcend politics. In a country where Democrats have a very seriously bad case of Trump derangement syndrome. Mountains must be made out of molehills. Gotta do it. Right is wrong, wrong is right. Victims of violent crimes can only be honored if their crime fits the leftist narrative. And that's where we are with that little tiny state, smallest in the nation, of Rhode Island. It has been a hotbed of anti-Trump activity ever since he took office in his second term, especially in the issue of illegal immigration, which has seen some woke state lawmakers openly threaten immigration enforcement officers. ICE presence in cities like Providence, Rhode Island, removal flights taken off from Portsmouth, led to outrage among Democrat officials and far-left wokeists, the latter of whom have staged street protests, set up tip lines, stakeouts where they try and locate ICE, allegedly giving them no choice but to leave. Well, most recently, the absolute state of things for the Democratic Party has been seen in Rhode Island, incredibly, in response to the painting of a mural of Irina Zarutska, that 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee, came to America for a better life and lost her life, stabbed to death on Charlotte's light rail system back in August by a man who, though not an illegal immigrant, was a multiple times repeat violent offender who never, ever should have been on the streets. This was painted, this mural of Irina, on the side of an LGBTQ club with the club's permission. And in turn, this caused all kinds of pearl clutching and outrage among the supposedly tolerant left community members, including the Democrat Mayor Brett Smiley, who wanted the mural, which is not yet completed, taken down. Providence Mayor Smiley calling for it to be removed, but he's not spoken to the owners of the club. Smiley said in a statement, "The murder of the individual depicted in this mural was a devastating tragedy, but the misguided, isolating intent of those funding murals like this across the country is divisive and does not represent Providence. I continue to urge our community to support local artists whose work brings us closer rather than divides us." Part of the apparent issue they have with this is that a large part of the funding for this mural came from Elon Musk. The Dark Lady LGBTQ club took so much heat over it, they issued a statement on their Facebook page reminding people that they were, in fact, Democrats who did not support President Trump, but who nevertheless felt like Zarutsky should be honored. Yeah. Here's their statement from Facebook. We want to be absolutely clear. We are Democrats. We do not support Donald Trump, his admin, or the politics of division, fear, and exclusion. Our values are progressive, rooted in inclusion, equality, and respect for all people. Nothing wrong with that. We're deeply frustrated after years of working tirelessly in our daily lives and our businesses to uphold strong ethical values. And we're being criticized for what was a genuine act of kindness and remembrance. The mural isn't even finished yet, and we hope that upon completion, the community will better understand its purpose. Unfortunately, and man does this suck, that mural will not be finished. The club bent the knee to the mob and pressure from that idiot mayor, and the mural, as a result, will be coming down. They posted on Facebook, "We heard you, PVD. We're deeply and sincerely sorry for everything that's taken place over the past week. After reflecting and learning, we've made the decision to discontinue the project and will move forward with removal as soon as possible. We remain committed to fostering unity, safety, and care for all members of our community, and we will continue to listen, learn, and act with those values at the forefront." There is the unfinished mural of Erna. For the record, these kinds of murals that are acceptable in Providence, Rhode Island, take a look. Yeah. This huge shout out they posed to Kendall Joseph for this beautiful George Floyd mural today. There was also a Say Their Names mural featuring George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Tony McDade, and David McAfee. The Democrats who just held their No Kings rally. Apparently that rule doesn't apply to kings like Mayor Smiley, who run blue cities. And their statements of supposed compassion extended to murder victims who might still be alive, except for this soft on crime bullshit Democrats we see running places like Providence. Hang your heads, Providence. You should be ashamed. Unbelievable. Man, that's good. You know what's in that cup? In that cup is the best coffee you will find on this planet. It's Blackout coffee. Blackout coffee. It is simply the best. Oh man, this stuff keeps me going every day. It is coffee made for true coffee lovers, Always big, bold, beautiful taste, never ever bitter. Unbelievable deals at Blackout Coffee. You can get your beans roasted in whole beans or ground. They now offer that option. Yes, a brilliant idea is to build yourself a coffee subscription. Save up to 20%, free shipping, swap flavors anytime, choose your roast, set your delivery time, and lock in subscriber pricing, and you can skip or cancel whenever you want. Unbelievably great idea. They do flavored coffees, pods, cold brew, instant, all the best. Pitch Black Espresso is my absolute favorite. It is so strong and so yummy and yet never ever bitter. They roast your beans only after you order, roast them and send them out within 48 hours at the most, and you got a fresh bag of beans or ground coffee at your front door waiting to brew up into the best coffee on the planet. Please check them out using the link in our show notes. Just hit show more. It'll expand down. You'll see in the show notes the link for Blackout Coffee. Get your order in if you're a first-timer. J20 is the code, JAY20, J20 for 20% off your first order at Blackout Coffee. Thanks, Blackout, John Santos and the gang over there. What a great group of people. We love these guys. All right. What the hell did Boasberg do now? I'm going to go out on a little bit of a limb here and predict that when you hear about something referencing the D.C. District Court Judge James Boasberg, you assume that you're yet going to hear about another ruling against the Trump administration. I mean, why wouldn't they? Here, you need a reminder? Here's what this knucklehead looks like. Oh, yeah. Now you remember him, right? Idiot. I got a bit of a surprise for you. Judge Boasberg actually ruled in favor of the administration last week. Yep, you heard that right. Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights versus Department of State, removal to El Salvador, Judge James Boasberg grants admin's motion to dismiss. Now, I'm not going to read the whole motion, but if you read between the lines of this ruling, obviously he did this very grudgingly. He did actually grant the admin's motion to dismiss a case involving the removal of illegal aliens to El Salvador. And no, to clarify, this is not the infamous JGG versus Trump case where the planes were ordered to turn around. That's not that case. That one lives on, oh boy. This is styled Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights versus the Department of State. In March 2025, the U.S. began transferring individuals from its custody to detention facilities in El Salvador. Those transfers follow a very diplomatic understanding between the two governments that they were accompanied by funding to support the individuals' confinement abroad. Groups that provided legal and related services to those affected and others who might face the same fate challenged the agreement, contending it violates a host of statutory and constitutional constraints. Well, they now move for summary judgment to set aside the agreement, clear the cloud of uncertainty looming over their work and their clients. And the government responds by moving to dismiss and, in the alternative, for summary judgment. Maintains the plaintiff lacks standing, the agreement's not subject to judicial review, and that it represents a lawful exercise of the executive's Foreign Affairs Authority. The judge is not coy about his view of this arrangement. He determines the plaintiff's organizations are injured by this in that it interferes with the attorney-client relationships and disrupts the services of organizations that are set up to provide. The judge determines that given that the question of whether vacating the agreement would deprive defendants of legal authority to keep rendering individuals to El Salvador or change the practical odds of defendants doing so is one that must be answered in the negative. Basically, he reasons that the agreement is a non-binding diplomatic exchange of notes that by definition don't create any legal obligations. I know, it's all very wonky. Boasberg said, because the relief plaintiffs seek would not likely redress their injuries, the court must dismiss their claims for lack of standing. Not, however, without providing the plaintiffs with a potential roadmap to mount a new challenge, because he just can't keep well enough alone. Rather than changing the diplomatic understanding between the U.S. and El Salvador, the judge suggests the government's implementing actions like the DHS removal decision and the State Department's funding actions are the proper focus of APA review. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You can almost hear the sigh of relief from Boasberg. Idiot. Moron! This is a great one. There was an anti-war protest going on. Where did this happen? It was part of one of the No Kings idiot protests over the weekend. But an Iranian woman actually confronted an anti-war protester with a stunning result. Wait till you see this video. The left, of course, as you know, had their ridiculous No Kings protest Saturday, attacking Trump, who isn't a king, duly elected by the people. Just a little reminder there, lefties. They're against the war on the incredibly oppressive regime of Iran that is worse than a king ever thought of being. Basically a theocratic dictatorship. And a lot of whom are not only ignorant about their perceptions of Trump, but they're also completely ignorant about the 47 years of terror that Iran has been involved in. Present-day media doesn't do anything to educate them, obviously. But this video's gone viral of an Iranian woman who's confronting one of these no-war protesters during the protest in London on Saturday. They call it No Kings because they actually have a king, which is hilarious. But the Guardian, who claimed it wasn't one, included it as part of the protest to show the numbers worldwide. The protester was carrying a sign that said, "Stop bombing Iran." The Iranian woman then explained to her with a lot of emotion why Iranian youth were asking for the bombing and asked her why she was supporting a terrorist regime. Give a listen.
She's right. Iranians are asking for the bombs. Oh no, they are. I'm a journalist. I'm in contact with Iranian youth who are asking to be bombed. And you are standing here supporting a terrorist regime. What are you doing supporting a terrorist regime? Why are you supporting a terrorist regime? I understand bombing is bad. Convince me of what? A of rape, of women not having no rights. I'm Iranian. I've been imprisoned by that regime. This has got nothing to do with Palestine. This is about a terrorist regime in my country. I can't even go to see my father's grave. I left as a refugee. You should think about it.
Think about it. She had reached her and informed her. She said the lady put down the banner and that she didn't know everything that was taking place in Iran. She cried, and they cried together. The lady said she would not be carrying that banner anymore. Badani was happy she was able to get through, said she believed it came from a place of not knowing. Now, that's a pretty amazing story. It does pinpoint the problem of exactly how much this is all manipulated by the idiot liberal media's take on these topics. What they say, what they don't say. A lot of these women think they're somehow standing up for humanity, when in fact they are on the wrong, absolutely polar opposite wrong side of this issue. With the truth, this shows some people can be reached. It's going to take the truth. And we've got to keep pushing it out there. People need to be woken up in some cases. Simp and Alapado. Aziko anime. Okay. Which, for some reason, you want to promote, knock yourself out. I don't mind. New York. A hell of a town. The Bronx is up, the battery's down, and we all live in a hole in the ground. Well, you know what? It seems sometimes that you do. In a classic liberal Democrat move, they voted for a bunch of insane policies that completely wreck the places they live in. And then, when those policies get implemented, they're pissed off about it. What? New Yorkers elected Mamdani last November. You knew what you were getting, morons. You knew it. A Democrat, socialist, communist, who would enact the policies that he told you he was going to do. There were no secrets. You cannot be surprised. You voted for it. Well, a majority of you did. And now guess what they're doing? They're complaining. Late Sunday night, hundreds of angry protesters swarmed the Brooklyn construction site of a new homeless shelter for men. Protesters were lined up along several blocks in Bensonhurst, where they were calling on Mamdani to halt construction of the shelter. 100 NYPD officers, some in riot gear, attempted to subdue a crowd that pushed over barricades and even surrounded and tried to block a moving construction truck. Construction on this proposed shelter is supposedly going to begin as soon as right now. It'll house 150 homeless men, many of whom are struggling with substance abuse, mental health issues, or in many cases, both. It's a largely Asian neighborhood. One protester said, "We're here to protest this homeless shelter, which is going to bring danger to the neighborhood. We'll stay here all night and come back tomorrow night and the night after that and keep coming back until the mayor shuts down construction of this shelter. This is a major thoroughfare that mothers and children and elderly people take every day. The subway's right here. Homeless shelters that house dangerous people need to be in isolated areas, not in the middle of major transportation hubs." Plans for this shelter have been in the works since November of 2023, long before Mem Danny. There's just one problem. Asian New Yorkers voted for this. Yeah. Almost half. 49.1% of Asian voters in the Big Apple voted for Mamdani. He stated that my admin is focused on ensuring every New Yorker experiencing homelessness not only has access to a shelter, but spaces that are safe, humane, and livable. Of course, it's not only Asian New Yorkers who are now getting exactly what they voted for, good and hard. They're now angry about it. The GOP candidate in the last mayoral election got 5% of the vote. 5%. Mamdani, 57%. Former Governor Cuomo, Democrat, ran as an independent, 37%. Do the math. That is 97% of Brooklyn voters casting their votes for Democrats, and whether they knew it or not, a homeless shelter in their neighborhood. All the things residents of this neighborhood are concerned about could and likely will happen. But now, they're not at the find out phase. They are right in the middle of you get what you voted for phase. Meanwhile, California, New York, continue driving out all those wealthy people they hate so much. And what's filling that hole? The homeless. Enjoy. You get what you voted for. Suck it up, Buttercup. Couldn't possibly care less. Wow. The death of femininity in Red America? What's causing it? Apparently, the popularity of girls wrestling. Yeah. When conservative parents celebrate their daughters pinning opponents to the mat, they are unknowingly advancing the feminist agenda. Girls wrestling, I did not know this. It is among the fastest growing sports in America. The population of that sport, girls wrestling, is very bad news for Red America, where the boys are not all right. Sadly, the rapid growth in girls wrestling shows that girls are not all right either. The new Plymouth, Idaho junior high wrestling team walked out between the third and fourth quarters of the recent district basketball tournament game, and about a third of that team were girls. During the delay, as the wrestlers walked up the sideline, the announcer said, "Here are the future girls and boys of the new Plymouth wrestling team," to the applause and approval, apparently, of the crowd. Trump carried the 4 precincts, feeding the new Plymouth School District with about 86% of the two-party vote. Fewer than 123 Idaho girls wrestled in 2018. When the state sports association sanctioned girls wrestling in 2022, 500 girls grappled. 25 and 26, Idaho had nearly 1,000 certified participants across weight classes, which, by the way, goes up to 235 pounds. That ain't a small girl. And more than a third of them are freshmen. Heavyweight division going to be added next year to accommodate girls over 235 pounds. Jeez. These wrestling matches, though, the fans are wearing MAGA hats, Jesus Loves You, and American flag t-shirts. They appreciate raw competition up and down the ticket, celebrate hard work, toughness. There are fewer fans that go to the girls' matches than the boys, that's for sure. The fans are a bit more subdued. Red America parents have become an unwilling participant in the feminist project. Parents don't know what to do with their daughters, so they raise them to some androgynous world where female wrestling and other aggressive sports is aspirational. Modern elite women's sports, especially confrontational, violent ones, designed to revolutionize female characters. For feminists today, as per their godmother, Simone de Beauvoir, sports would help teach women aggression, daring, physical confrontation, a desire for dominance. The traditional woman, Beauvoir writes, lacked the free and habitual resort to force that would allow her to know the conquering pride of a boy who pins his opponent's shoulders to the ground. Women rarely confront another as free beings seeking to vanquish, to force an arm to yield and bend, to assert one's sovereignty over the world in general. The competitive attitude most important to young men is little known among young women. Good, as it should be. Unbelievable. And it's going to keep on going. Outrageous. Did you hear about the missing Kit Kats? Oh, yeah. Well, other brands, after hearing about the large stash of Kit Kat bars that went missing in Europe, have come out with kind of a hilarious response. If I were to rank my top 5 candy bars, would Kit Kat be in there? It might. Mounds, 100% number 1. Hands down, number 1 by a long shot. I love Mounds bars. Sadly, we don't have them in my country. We have something called Bounty, which for all intents is exactly the same thing as a Mounds bar. So, Bounty is my savior. Anyway, they'd be there with Kick, Twix, 100 grand bars, the old Fashion Hershey milk chocolate bars, love those. Marathon bars, remember those? Well, Kit Kat celebrated their 90th anniversary last year. Has a pretty neat history, according to their official bio. 1935, a heartwarming treat named Roundtree's Chocolate Crisp hit the stores around the United Kingdom. Fast forward to today, and we all know and love them as Nestle's Kit Kat. The somewhat simple name derived from the Kit Kat Club, a 18th century club for the elite in London. You didn't know they started in London, did you? Oh, yeah. The name was chosen to add a hint of sophistication and grandness to the sweet, smooth snack. And one of the stranger stories to come out over the last few days involves Kit Kat. Several 100,000 of them apparently got stolen in Europe. It's being called a chocolate heist. And here's what they allege happened. Kit Kat, owned by Swiss food giant Nestle, told APF Saturday that a truck transporting 413 over 1,000 units of its new chocolate range was stolen during transit in Europe. The shipment just disappeared last week while heading between production and distribution locations. We're always encouraging people to have a break with Kit Kat, but it seems the thieves have taken that message just a little too literally and made a break with about 12 tons of Kit Kats. The company says the truck left a factory in central Italy, making its way to Poland when it was stolen. Adding the vehicle and its contents remain completely unaccounted for. The bars were reportedly in the Formula One shaped version of the popular candy. Nestle said over the weekend it had 12 tons of its Formula One car-shaped Kit Kat chocolates go missing. And many other brands who have a sense of humor, some of them food-related, had thoughts, including chains right here in the U.S. Denny's. Bad time to roll out our Kit Kat pancakes, huh? Domino's. This McDonald's France tweet, roughly translated, states, "We still have some Kit Kats left if you need them." DoorDash get in on the action. For legal reasons, this is a joke. And the Crumbly Cookies X account made some folks salivate. Let me show you the picture. Kit Kat regarding their press coverage. Look at some of these replies. These are funny as hell. When I realized I'm a grown-up and I can do whatever I want. Unbelievable. Hungary! There you go. There's the culprit. It's not about chocolate. It's about sending a message. Nobody gets a break. My favorite from Breaking Bad. Man. All right, speaking of breaking things, one more before we go. We have all had. Do you go to the casinos? I do. I don't so much anymore because, frankly, I just can't afford it. And here we have one casino, Genting Highlands, which is a part of Resorts World. They now have open casinos in Las Vegas. But we have the original Genting Highlands here, Resorts World. And frankly, their return to player percentages have been just turned way down. You see, we don't have the same kind of gambling boards like they do in the U.S. So sadly, the business is pretty much unregulated. On the positive aspect, you don't pay taxes on gambling winnings. So there's that. Anyway, in Shawnee, Oklahoma, apparently a video slot machine went blank. The screen just disappeared when one of the players was up $600,000. Needless to say, he was a little pissed.
Give me one back. He got money back.
Hey!
Ooh.
Give some.
Another
Yeah. He went nuts.
one. Ooh, you gotta stop.
Get your number. Get your number. Get your number.
Security. I've gotten mad when I lost money before, but that's $600,000. Now, the chances are it's all on a computer record. It's entirely traceable. But that guy, not really having a very good day of things. I feel you, buddy. I feel you. Oh, man. Thanks, folks, for popping by. Appreciate it. Dan Bongino's up next at 10 here on Rumble. We are live on YouTube and Rumble Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Be sure and check out our sponsors. You want to donate to help keep the show free and alive, you can do that at our PayPal link. And we really appreciate your taking advantage of all of our great deals with our sponsors, too. I will see you all again tomorrow.